You don't know who I am. Sophia Hartwell, 25 years old, says it like a fact, not a threat. Like she's correcting a waiter who brought the wrong wine. She's sitting in Providence Municipal Court, Tuesday morning, case number trailing behind her like a shadow she hasn't noticed yet. Judge Frank Caprio doesn't look up from the file. Miss Hartwell, I know exactly who you are. The question is whether you know why you're here. Sophia shifts in her chair. Her attorney, Marcus Chen, leans forward with the practiced ease of someone who's made a career out of making problems disappear. Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter. My client is prepared to settle the citation and move forward today. We'd like to request expedited resolution given her schedule. Caprio sets his pen down slowly. Mr. Chen, this court doesn't operate on anyone's schedule except justice. Sit down. The words aren't loud. They don't need to be. Before we hear what Judge Caprio does next, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to All Rise if you believe no one is above the law. This video shows what happens when entitlement meets accountability. The clerk stands, voice steady and official. Docket 2411-3492, Commonwealth v. Sophia Marie Hartwell. Charges: reckless driving on Route 95 South, 87 miles per hour in a posted 55-mile-per-hour zone, failure to yield to emergency vehicle, blue lights, and siren active, verbal obstruction of police duty. Citation issued by Sergeant Daniel Kowalski, Rhode Island State Police, Saturday, 11:34 p.m. Caprio looks up. Miss Hartwell, how do you plead? Sophia doesn't hesitate. Not guilty. This is ridiculous. I was barely speeding. 87 in a 55 is not barely. That's 32 miles over the limit. At night. In the rain. The road was empty. The ambulance behind you wasn't empty. Sophia blinks. For the first time, something flickers across her face. Not guilt, but surprise that someone is pushing back. I didn't see an ambulance. Caprio turns to the officer standing near the wall. Sergeant Kowalski, please read your incident report. Sergeant Daniel Kowalski steps forward, mid-40s, squared shoulders, the kind of cop who's seen it all and still shows up every shift like it matters. At 11:32 p.m., I was traveling southbound on Route 95 near Exit 18. An ambulance, Unit 7 from Providence EMS, was traveling in the left lane with full lights and sirens activated, responding to a multi-vehicle accident near Exit 15. Traffic was moving to the right shoulder to clear the lane, per state law. He pauses. At approximately 11:33 p.m., I observed a black Mercedes sedan, Rhode Island registration Victor Charlie Echo 749, traveling at high speed in the left lane. The vehicle did not move over for the ambulance. The ambulance had to brake and shift lanes to avoid collision. I pursued the vehicle and conducted a traffic stop at 11:34 p.m. Caprio nods. Continue. When I approached the driver, I identified her as Miss Sophia Hartwell. I explained the violations. She stated, and I quote, "Do you know who my mother is?" When I continued writing the citation, she stated, "My mom is Governor Hartwell. She's going to hear about this." When I asked her to sign the citation acknowledging receipt, she refused. She then stated, "I'm calling my mom right now." "And you're going to regret this?" Sophia interrupts. "That's not what I said." Caprio raises a hand. "Miss Hartwell, you'll have your chance. Sergeant, did you activate your body camera?" "Yes, Your Honor. The footage is available." "Play it." The courtroom falls silent. A screen on the side wall flickers to life. The timestamp reads 11:34:27 p.m. Rain streaks the lens. Red and blue lights pulse in the background. Sergeant Kowalski's voice, calm and professional. "Ma'am, the reason I stopped you is you were traveling 87 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone, and you failed to yield to an emergency vehicle. I'm going to need your license, registration, and insurance." Sophia's voice, sharp and impatient. "This is insane. I was going with traffic." "Ma'am, the ambulance behind you had to brake and change lanes. That's a violation of—" "Do you know who I am?" A pause. Kowalski's voice doesn't change. "I need your documents, please." "My mother is Governor Hartwell. She's going to hear about this." "Ma'am, I'm writing you a citation for reckless driving and failure to yield to an emergency vehicle. Please sign here acknowledging receipt. This is not an admission of guilt." "I'm not signing anything. I'm calling my mom right now, and you're going to regret pulling me over." The footage ends. The silence in the courtroom is thick. Caprio leans back. "Miss Hartwell, you just told this court that's not what you said. We just heard you say exactly that." Sophia's jaw tightens. "I was frustrated. He was being aggressive." "Sergeant Kowalski asked for your documents and explained the law. That's not aggression. That's his job." Marcus Chen stands. "Your Honor, my client was understandably upset. The stop occurred late at night, in the rain, on a dark highway. Emotions were high. We're not disputing the speed, but the characterization of her statements as obstruction is subjective." Caprio's eyes narrow. "Counselor, threatening an officer with political retaliation is not subjective. It's on tape. Sit down." Caprio flips a page. "There's a supplemental report here from Providence EMS. Miss Reyes, can you read the relevant section?" The clerk stands. "Incident report from Unit 7, Paramedic Michael Torres. At 11:33 p.m., while responding Code 3 to a multi-vehicle accident on Route 95 South, our unit was forced to brake and change lanes to avoid a black sedan that failed to yield despite full lights and sirens. Delay estimated at 14 seconds. Patient condition critical. Every second mattered." Caprio looks at Sophia. "Miss Hartwell, do you understand what 14 seconds means when someone is bleeding out on the highway?" Sophia doesn't answer. "That's the difference between brain damage and recovery. That's the difference between life and death. You didn't just break the speed limit. You delayed an ambulance carrying someone's mother, someone's child, someone's spouse." Sophia's voice is quieter now, but still defensive. "I didn't know. I didn't see the ambulance." "Because you were going 87 miles per hour in the rain. At night. You weren't paying attention." Caprio picks up another document. "There's a note here from the Rhode Island State Police. Miss Hartwell, were you stopped for speeding on Route 6 in January of this year?" Sophia hesitates. "That was a warning." "Because the officer noted in his report that you mentioned your mother was the governor, and he chose to issue a warning instead of a citation. Is that correct?" "I don't remember." "The officer remembers. He documented it. Driver stated her mother is Governor Hartwell and asked if we could handle this informally. He gave you a warning. Did you learn from it?" Silence. "Miss Hartwell, privilege isn't a lesson. It's a shield. And every time someone lets you hide behind it, you miss the chance to grow." Marcus Chen tries again. "Your Honor, a prior warning is not relevant to today's charges. It's relevant to judgment. Patterns show us whether someone is learning or just avoiding. This isn't Miss Hartwell's first time using her mother's name to escape consequences." Caprio turns to his clerk. Miss Reyes, were there any contacts to this court regarding this case? The clerk nods. Yes, Your Honor. One incoming call yesterday at 2:47 p.m. from a number registered to the Office of the Governor, State of Rhode Island. The caller identified herself as Chief of Staff Linda Carmichael. She asked to speak with you directly regarding Case 2411-3492. What did you tell her? I informed her that all communications regarding pending cases must go through the prosecutor's office and be placed on the record. She asked if there was any way to expedite a resolution before the hearing. I told her no. Caprio looks at Sophia. Miss Hartwell, did you ask your mother's office to call this court? No. But you told Sergeant Kowalski you were going to call your mother and he would regret pulling you over. That was just... I was angry. And within 15 hours, the governor's chief of staff called this court asking to expedite a resolution. That's a remarkable coincidence. Marcus Chen stands quickly. Your Honor, my client cannot control what the governor's staff does. This is prejudicial. Overruled. When someone invokes a public official's name as leverage and that official's office subsequently contacts the court, it's not prejudice. It's evidence of pattern and intent. Caprio sets down the file and looks directly at Sophia. Miss Hartwell, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Yes or no answers. Okay. Were you driving 87 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone? A pause. Yes. Did you fail to yield to an ambulance with lights and sirens? I didn't see it at first. That's not a no. Did you fail to yield? Yes. Did you tell Sergeant Kowalski that your mother is the governor and he would regret pulling you over? Sophia's voice drops. Yes. Caprio nods. Thank you for being honest. Now I'm going to tell you something and I need you to hear it. Your mother is a powerful woman. She's the governor of this state. She has influence, resources, and authority. But none of that travels into this courtroom. Not 1 ounce. Sophia stares at him. The law doesn't care about your last name. It doesn't care about your connections. It doesn't care about your mother's office. It cares about what you did on Saturday night at 11:33 p.m. on Route 95. And what you did was dangerous, reckless, and selfish. The courtroom door opens. A woman in a navy suit enters. Mid-50s, composed, familiar. The kind of presence that changes the air in a room. Governor Rebecca Hartwell. She walks to the front row and sits without speaking. Every eye in the courtroom follows her. Caprio doesn't stand. He doesn't acknowledge her beyond a brief glance. Governor Hartwell, you're welcome to observe. This is a public hearing. The governor nods. Sophia looks at her mother, then back at Caprio, something like relief crossing her face. Caprio continues as if nothing happened. Miss Hartwell, I want you to understand something. Your mother being here doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the facts. It doesn't change the law. And it doesn't change the consequences. Governor Hartwell leans forward slightly as if to speak. Caprio raises a hand, gentle but firm. Governor, with all due respect, this is your daughter's case, not yours. If you'd like to observe, you're welcome. If you'd like to speak, you'll need to be sworn in as a witness and placed on the record. Otherwise, I need you to remain silent. The governor sits back. For the first time, Sophia looks small. Caprio picks up another document. There's a statement here from the accident victim the ambulance was responding to. His name is David Martinez. He's 34 years old, husband, father of 2. He was hit by a drunk driver on Route 95 near Exit 15, severe internal bleeding. He was in critical condition when Unit 7 was dispatched. He looks at Sophia. Mr. Martinez survived, but it was close. The paramedics said every second mattered. You cost them 14 seconds. Sophia's voice is barely a whisper. I didn't know. You didn't know because you weren't paying attention. You were going a miles per hour in the rain, at night, with zero regard for anyone else on that road. Caprio sets the paper down. Mr. Martinez's wife wrote a letter to this court. She said, I don't know who delayed the ambulance. I don't need to know their name. I just want them to understand that my husband almost died. My kids almost lost their father. Seconds matter. The courtroom is silent. Miss Hartwell, do you understand what she's saying? Sophia nods, her eyes wet. Say it out loud. Yes, I understand. Caprio folds his hands. Here's what I've heard today. You were driving recklessly. You endangered other drivers. You delayed an ambulance carrying a dying man. When you were stopped, you threatened the officer with your mother's position. And when you came to court, you lied about what you said. He pauses. But I've also heard something else. When I asked you direct questions, you told the truth. That matters. So here's my ruling. You're guilty on all charges. The fines total $1,850. Reckless driving, $12,200. Failure to yield to emergency vehicle, $500. Verbal obstruction, $150. Sophia exhales, shoulders sagging. But I'm not finished. She looks up. I'm suspending $800 of that total contingent on your completion of a restorative accountability program. If you complete it within 90 days, the suspended amount is dismissed. If you don't, you pay the full $1,850 plus a $200 administrative fee. Marcus Chen stands. Your Honor, what does the program entail? I'm glad you asked. First, Miss Hartwell will write a formal apology to Sergeant Kowalski. Not a public relations statement, not a lawyer-drafted letter. A real apology that explains what she did wrong and what she learned. She'll deliver it in person if he agrees to meet her. If he declines, she'll mail it and provide proof of delivery to this court. Caprio turns a page. Second, she'll complete 60 hours of community service with Providence EMS. She'll assist with non-medical tasks, help with equipment maintenance, and shadow paramedics on ride-alongs so she understands what emergency response actually looks like. The shift supervisor will submit monthly progress reports. Sophia's eyes widen. Third, she'll attend and complete a driver safety course focused on emergency vehicle awareness and highway safety in adverse conditions. She'll submit her certificate of completion to this court. Fourth, she'll meet with David Martinez and his family if they agree. Not to apologize. They don't owe her that opportunity, but to listen, to hear what those 14 seconds meant to them. If they decline, she'll write them a letter acknowledging the harm she caused. Fifth, she'll create and present a 20-minute educational presentation on emergency vehicle right-of-way laws to 3 high school drivers' education classes. No cameras, no media, no publicity, just education. Caprio sets his pen down. And sixth, she'll write a 1,000-word reflection on the difference between privilege and responsibility. Not an essay, not academic writing, plain truth about what she's learned and how she's going to change. The courtroom is quiet. Caprio looks at Sophia. Miss Hartwell, do you understand the terms? Yes, Your Honor. Do you accept them? She nods, then catches herself. Yes, I accept. Good. You have 90 days starting today. Miss Reyes will provide you with the contact information for the program coordinator. You'll check in monthly. Any questions? Sophia shakes her head. Marcus Chen starts to stand, then thinks better of it. Caprio isn't finished. There's one more thing. I'm making a formal recommendation to the Rhode Island State Police and the Office of the Attorney General. Any citation where a driver invokes a public official's name or position during a traffic stop should be flagged for review. Not to punish the driver more harshly, but to document the pattern and ensure the officer isn't pressured to drop the citation. He looks directly at Governor Hartwell. When people use their family connections to avoid consequences, it creates a two-tier system. One set of rules for the connected, another for everyone else. That's not justice. That's privilege, and it needs to be documented and addressed. The governor meets his gaze but says nothing. Caprio continues. I'm also recommending that any contact from a public official's office regarding a pending case be automatically logged and published in a monthly transparency report, not to shame anyone, but to create accountability. The public has a right to know when power is being used to influence outcomes. He closes the file. Miss Hartwell, you're dismissed. Your first check-in is 30 days from today. Don't be late. Sophia stands slowly. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Thank Sergeant Kowalski for doing his job. Thank the paramedics who saved Mr. Martinez despite your delay. And thank your mother for raising you to tell the truth when it mattered. Sophia walks toward the door. Her mother stands and follows without speaking. As they reach the hallway, Caprio calls out one more time. Miss Hartwell? She turns. Your mother's position gave you opportunities most people never get. Education, resources, connections. But it can't give you character. That's something you have to earn yourself. Don't waste this chance. Sophia's voice is steady now. I won't, Your Honor. The door closes behind them. The next case is called. The courtroom moves on. But 3 weeks later, something changes. Sophia shows up for her first shift at Providence EMS headquarters. She's early, dressed in plain clothes, no makeup, no attitude. The shift supervisor, Captain James Riley, hands her a mop and points to the ambulance bay. Equipment gets cleaned after every shift. Blood, vomit, mud, whatever came in with the last patient. Start there. She doesn't argue. She cleans. For 4 hours, she scrubs gurneys, wipes down monitors, restocks supply bags. Her hands are red by the end. She doesn't complain. Captain Riley watches from the doorway. Most people who get court-ordered service show up late, do the minimum, and leave. You're different. Sophia shrugs. I owe this. You owe more than this. I know. The next week, she shadows paramedic Torres, the same one who wrote the incident report about the 14-second delay. He doesn't bring it up. She does. I read your report. I'm sorry. Torres doesn't look at her. He's checking equipment, counting supplies, preparing for the shift. You delayed us by 14 seconds. You know what we did in those 14 seconds when we finally got to Mr. Martinez? She shakes her head. We stopped the bleeding. Started an IV. Got him stabilized enough to transport. 14 seconds is 2 rounds of compressions. It's 3 breaths. It's the difference between we tried and he made it. Sophia's voice cracks. I didn't think... No, you didn't. But you're here now, so listen. Every person in this bay, every paramedic, every EMT, every dispatcher, we all know we're racing the clock. Seconds matter. Traffic matters. When people don't move over, when they block intersections, when they think their schedule is more important than someone's life, people die. She nods, silent. Torres finally looks at her. You want to make this right? Learn. Pay attention. And when you're back in your car, remember that lights and sirens mean someone is dying. I will. By week 6, Sophia has completed 40 hours. She's mopped floors, restocked ambulances, organized supply closets, and shadowed 4 different paramedics. She's seen 3 cardiac arrests, 2 car accidents, and 1 child choking on a toy. She's watched paramedics save lives with skill, speed, and compassion. Captain Riley pulls her aside. You've got 20 hours left. You've done good work. How do you feel? Humbled. Good. Humility is the first step toward wisdom. On week 8, Sophia meets Sergeant Kowalski in person. They sit in a quiet room at the state police barracks. She hands him the letter she's written. He reads it slowly. It's 2 pages, handwritten, no legal jargon, no deflection, just truth. I threatened you because I thought my mother's name would make you back down. I was wrong. You were doing your job, and I tried to intimidate you out of it. I'm sorry. I'm learning that power isn't something you borrow. It's something you earn by doing what's right, even when it's hard. Thank you for not letting me off. I needed this. Kowalski folds the letter. I've been a cop for 19 years. I've been threatened, cursed at, spat on, and worse. But you know what hurts most? When people think the law doesn't apply to them. When they think their name, their money, their connections make them untouchable. Sophia nods. I thought that. I was wrong. You were. But you're here now. That counts for something. On week 10, Sophia presents her first driver's education class at a local high school. She's nervous, hands shaking as she sets up the slideshow. 30 teenagers stare at her, half interested, half scrolling their phones. She starts simply. My name is Sophia. 3 months ago I was driving 87 miles per hour in the rain. I didn't yield to an ambulance. I delayed paramedics by 14 seconds. A man almost died because of me. The phones go down. Every eye is on her now. I'm here because a judge gave me a choice. I could pay a fine and walk away, or I could learn why what I did mattered. I chose to learn. And I'm going to tell you what I learned, so maybe you won't make the same mistake. For 20 minutes, she talks about emergency vehicle laws, about the physics of speed in rain, about the human cost of reckless driving. She shows them the letter from Mrs. Martinez. She tells them about the paramedics she's met, the lives they've saved, the seconds that mattered. When she finishes, a girl in the front row raises her hand. Do you still think about it? The guy you almost killed? Every day. Does it get easier? No, but it gets clearer. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure I never do it again, and I can make sure you don't either. The teacher thanks her as she packs up. That was powerful. Most people who come here to do court-ordered talks just read from a script. You meant it. I did. On day 87, 3 days before her deadline, Sophia receives a letter. It's from Mrs. Martinez. Inside, a single page. Sophia, my husband and I received your letter. We've talked about whether to meet you. We've decided not to. Not because we're angry, but because we need to move forward. But I want you to know something. My husband survived. He's home. He's healing. He still has nightmares about the accident, but he's here. You didn't kill him. The drunk driver tried. The paramedics saved him. You delayed them, but they still got there in time. I don't forgive you because I don't think you need my forgiveness. You need to forgive yourself and make sure you never put someone else in this position. Thank you for your letter. I believe you meant it." Sophia reads it 3 times. She folds it carefully and puts it in her bag. That night, she finishes her 1,000-word reflection. She doesn't write about regret or shame. She writes about responsibility. Privilege is a head start you didn't earn. Responsibility is the choice to use that head start to help others, not to hurt them. I was given every advantage. I wasted it by thinking the rules didn't apply to me. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm taking the chance I was given and doing something with it. I'm learning that power without accountability is tyranny. I'm learning that character isn't who you are when people are watching. It's who you are when you think no one will find out. I'm learning that seconds matter, lives matter, and privilege is only worth having if you use it to protect people, not to run over them. She submits everything on day 89, the certificate from the driver safety course, the logs from Providence EMS showing 62 hours completed, 2 hours over the requirement, the signed confirmation from Sergeant Kowalski, the letters to Mr. Martinez and his wife, the reflection, the presentation notes from 3 high schools. On day 90, she returns to court. The courtroom is nearly empty this time. No media, no spectators, just Caprio, the clerk, and Sophia. No attorney, no mother, no entourage. She's alone. Caprio reviews the file in silence. He flips through the logs, the letters, the reflection. He reads for a long time. Finally, he looks up. "Miss Hartwell, I've read everything you submitted. I want to hear from you. In your own words, no script. What did you learn?" Sophia stands. "I learned that I've spent my whole life assuming someone would clean up my mistakes. I learned that privilege isn't protection, it's accountability. The more advantages you have, the more you're responsible for using them well. I learned that emergency responders are racing against death every single shift, and when I didn't move over, I wasn't just breaking a law. I was choosing my convenience over someone's life." She pauses. "I learned that character is built in moments when no one is grading you. When you do the right thing because it's right, not because you'll get credit, I learned that I'm not special. I'm just someone who was given a second chance, and I'm grateful for it." Caprio nods slowly. "You completed 62 hours of service. The requirement was 60. Why the extra 2? Because I wanted to finish what I started. Captain Riley offered to sign off at 60. I asked to stay for 1 more shift. Why? Because I wasn't done learning." Caprio signs a form. "I'm remitting the $800 suspended portion of your fine. You've completed the program in full and exceeded the requirements. Your remaining balance is $1,050. You'll pay it in 6 monthly installments. The court will monitor compliance." "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me yet. I want to tell you something." He sets his pen down. "When you walked into this courtroom 3 months ago, you were entitled, dismissive, and arrogant. You thought your mother's name would save you. It didn't, but you know what did? The moment you stopped hiding behind her and started facing this yourself." Sophia's eyes are wet. "I'm sorry for who I was." "Don't be sorry. Be better. You've started that process. Keep going." She nods. "I will. One more thing. I received a letter last week from Captain Riley at Providence EMS. He said you're one of the best volunteers they've ever had. He asked if you'd be interested in continuing after your service hours are complete. Not court-ordered, just service." Sophia looks surprised. "He asked that?" He did. Are you interested? Yes, absolutely. Caprio smiles, the first time in the entire case. Good. The world needs more people who choose service over status. You're dismissed, Miss Hartwell. Don't come back here. I won't, Your Honor. She walks toward the door. Before she leaves, she turns back. Judge Caprio? Yes? Thank you for not letting me off easy. You're welcome. Now go earn the second chance you were given. The door closes. Caprio sits alone in the quiet courtroom. He thinks about the girl who walked in 3 months ago, arrogant and untouchable, and the young woman who just walked out, humbled and accountable. He thinks about Sergeant Kowalski, standing in the rain, doing his job despite the threats. He thinks about the paramedics, racing against death, every single shift. He picks up his pen and writes one sentence on a note card. He pins it to the board behind his bench, next to dozens of others. Privilege is a loan. Character is the interest you pay back. He turns off the light and locks the door. Outside, Sophia stands on the courthouse steps. Her mother's car is waiting at the curb. But she doesn't get in. She pulls out her phone and calls Captain Riley. Captain, it's Sophia. Judge Caprio told me you asked if I'd keep volunteering. I'd like to. When's the next shift? She listens, nods, smiles. I'll be there. Thank you for giving me a chance. She hangs up and walks past her mother's car. She's taking the bus today, not because she has to, because she wants to, because privilege is a choice. And she's choosing differently now. If you believe accountability changes lives, subscribe to All Rise and share this story. Justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. And sometimes the people who fall the furthest are the ones who rise the highest.